What is up, everybody? It is your boy Luis Martinez aquí vivo en directo from the San Diego Latino Film Festival 2021 hybrid virtual edition. Obviously, we wish we could be with you guys all in person celebrating Latino excellence in filmmaking. But, we do what we can, and this year's virtual film festival features hundreds of movies from all over Central, South America, Latin America, Mexico, with filmmakers from all over the world. And it is truly humbling to be a part of the festival this year again and to be able to talk with you guys and have these Q&A sessions after the films. So let's get right into it. The film that we're going to talk to about today, you guys, some of you guys just finished watching, is called Truly, I forgot, Truly Texas, Mexican Texas, or Texan Mexicans. I saw it last night. I know the name. More importantly, I know the people that are involved with the film. And it is a really interesting look at the culture of the southern Texas, northeast Mexican region, what that means in terms of the culture, the food, and it's a documentary that I enjoyed because it takes you to a lot of different places you weren't expecting when you start. So joining us today to talk about the film all the way from Uruguay is the filmmaker and cinematographer, Mr. Aníbal, and Mr. Gabriel. Thank you for joining us.
Gracias.
And then we also have the writer and the narrator, Mr. Adán Medrano. Truly Texas Mexican, that's the name right there. And then we have one of the producers of the film here, Virginia Diaz-Laughlin. Thank you all for joining us today.
Gracias.
Thanks for inviting us. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
The first thing I want to talk about is the mix between a film crew from the very tip of South America, from Uruguay, and a movie that takes place in the top right-hand corner of Central and Central America, South America, in the northeast corner of Mexico. How did you guys meet each other, and where did that collaboration start for this project? Anybody?
Bueno, por varias razones, a lot of reasons. That one is a friendship with Adán.
¿Se conocían antes?
Sí, y a través de la amistad fuimos pensando en desarrollar el documental que es sobre la investigación y el trabajo de Adán en su libro, Truly Texas Mexican. Y bueno, además combina muchos intereses personales, cosas bueno, que amo, que es los documentales, viajar, conocer otras culturas. Y bueno, y un poco profundizando en el tema, descubrir que compartimos muchas cosas en las Américas y que la historia un poco se repite tanto en Uruguay como en Estados Unidos, y cosas que parecen distantes comparten historia y cultura.
We knew Adán in, I guess, 2009, 2010, I guess. It was our first collaboration in another film we did with Aníbal, and also Adán helped us.
Caballitos de Lata.
Caballitos de Lata, like teen horses. So that was our first connection. And then, well, as Aníbal said, we keep in some kind of contact and friendship. And when Adán show Aníbal his book, Aníbal has the idea to make a movie, and then we start to talk about the possibilities, and that was more or less the.
Do you, from the producer side, from Virginia and Adán, when, because let's say it was a movie about el choripán or el asado, right? And you were gonna make a movie about that type of food. You would almost think, yeah, let's get a Uruguayan or South American crew to film it because they know about it. But it's almost like it would almost be better to have somebody that's coming from the outside with a different perspective so that they can see what's in front of you with different eyes. Virginia, Adán, did you guys feel some of that because they were coming from so far away, still Latinos, but they were coming in and observing it? Did you feel that gave it a different sort of vision for the film overall?
Virginia?
Yes, I did. I felt that it gave us again, a new set of eyes. But what was interesting is as we were shooting in our van for 9 days on the road, we came to discover so many similarities between the history in Uruguay and then what happened here in Texas and northern Mexico.
It was. I agree. The idea to do the film, as Aníbal and Gabriel have said, was Aníbal's after he read the book. He said to me that it was a universal story. It was not a Texas story. Of course, it's about Texas. I am a Coahuiltecan descendant. Our people stepped, as is Virginia. Mm-hmm. Our people first stepped on Texas soil over 15,000 years ago. We are the original inhabitants. We are not the immigrants, as we are often called. And I felt that food, well, I'm a chef, and my 2 cookbooks are about history and the aesthetics of cooking and eating. And when Aníbal told me that, I did fly to Montevideo because I spent 23 years working as a grant maker, funding media projects all over Latin America. And I wanted to go back to Uruguay because of the delicious fish, the delicious wines. So I went, we had a great lunch with Uruguayan wines, and we decided to do it. And we couldn't move ahead. We thought we'd do it guerrilla style, them flying down, do a shooting script, but we needed a producer. I didn't know Virginia, although we lived in the same city, Houston. We both come from San Antonio. We grew up with the same food. We went to the same University of Texas at Austin, majoring in radio, television, film. So, I mean,
no, it was crazy, yes.
And so I asked Virginia. She was recommended by the Houston Film Commission. I was looking for a producer, and it had to be someone who understood this food. And Virginia saw the book, and she said yes.
Virginia, obviously in independent filmmakers and smaller productions, it's usually the director and the talent, you know. When you get to this level of producing a documentary that crosses, you know, multiple boundaries, bringing in people from different countries, can you talk a little bit about, you know, the role of the producer in that process in terms of, like, you know, connecting all the different parts so that the creatives can create and so that the storytellers can tell their story?
Well, since Aníbal and Gabo had such a long relationship before I came into the picture, my job was really to make sure that everything was in place, that everything, the tools they needed, the opportunities that we would have to film something that maybe we hadn't planned on was there. And so, and especially because Aníbal was the primary force in getting Adán considered to make the movie. It was really important to me to let them do their thing, as it were. You know, let them create, let them do that. Give them the broadest brush to be able to paint this picture. And so I guess from that point, it was a little more logistic and budget consciousness that I had to do to give them that opportunity.
One of the other things that I really enjoyed about the film is how and even the trailer, because you start seeing the information and you're like, oh, this is a little documentary about cooking and about Tex-Mex food, and then you keep adding, okay, then all of a sudden you're showing me the border, then all of a sudden it's the indigenous people, and then it's like, no, it's the indigenous people that became Mexican people. So you keep adding and sort of raising the stakes on this, where it starts to become a more universal story. Did you, Aníbal and Gabo, when you guys started, capturing this, did you guys see all those layers at the beginning, or did you discover more of them as you went along?
Creo que la riqueza del proyecto, en la riqueza siempre estuvo esa complejidad de capas, de layers.
Eso es lo que te trayó el proyecto, me imagino.
Sí, la dimensión, desde todo lo que decías, de la dimensión política hasta la dimensión de integrar miradas, personajes.
El arte.
Claro. Y bueno, no sé, Gabo,
how was it, Gabo, when you started? Did you make a conscious effort to have like a minimalist sort of shoot a feel, so you weren't interfering in the conversations, or did what kind of setup were you working with in terms of just kind of allowing them, because you're moving through a lot of spaces, you're talking about the land, the connection, the things. Did you make a conscious effort to sort of try to maybe not have as many tools or little tricks or gadgets and stuff to keep it more simple, or did you how did you prepare for that?
Well, we like to work with Aníbal for many years, and this is one of the things we take care about, trying to work with small crew, and small technical equipment, because that allow us to better connection with people. It's without much preparation, just being confident about the one you have in front of you, and trying not to put many no poner barreras entre medio, barriers between us. So I like to work with small camera, and just the camera without monitors or external recorders. Not just because I feel comfortable with movement, but because I know that allow a better contact with the other. It's very important when you have no much time with the one you will interview. We will with each character about 4 or 5 hours, and it was very important to, in those 5 hours, connect y transmitir confianza, like being confident. And I think that without much more equipment, this is easier. That's why we like to work in that way.
Can I ask you what camera you use for this?
Yeah, Sony FS5.
Okay. And how many total days was the shoot, Virginia?
It was 9 days total
Nine.
Okay.
for the shoot. starting in Houston and then down the valley and back.
Wow, that 9 days. Wow. That's
And
impressive.
lots of footage.
Yeah.
Adán, you I have a couple of questions for you. Obviously, you wrote the story that this is based off of. One of the themes that I felt is the connection from the food to the culture to the earth. There's this theory. Obviously, I've interviewed filmmakers that have come from Texas to San Diego, and I always make the joke, well, of course, you're finally getting some good Mexican food here. Like can we just kind of get them, that Southern California Mexican, there's always that. But is that love of the of your kind of local cuisine? Do you think that's like ingrained from the area that you're in, from like the DNA, like almost down to your DNA, that you're just that because this is the food and the ingredients that are coming from the ground where you lived or your ancestors lived, that you are more drawn to it or hold on to it as a favorite?
Well, I think we all love and always go back to the food with which we grew up, the food that your mother gave you. Your mother always makes the best this or that dish, whether you're Italian or Californiano or Uruguayo. The basic idea of the first book was this idea that Chicanos, Latinx from this part of the world where I come from, are universal beings like every other universal being on this planet. And the fact that we are relegated to non-identity is a political policy that we have endured for 500 years. That's in the first book, along with 100 recipes that document the stuff that's in the movie. In the second book, I go further into and this gets to the question of the power of the food. Why is the food so powerful? The second book is The Art of Texas Mexican Cooking, The Art. And the title is Don't Count the Tortillas. Las tortillas no se cuentan. And in that I describe how cooking is an aesthetic practice that defines your memory, foments cultural cohesiveness, and is a way that you connect with larger issues, larger than yourself, the planet. We are all brothers and sisters in this world. And that's the idea that we went into this film with. When I was asked to do, we did a shooting script. We met virtually and we had the ideas. And this is the basic idea. The big idea is, después de todo, somos todos de una planeta, and we all come from different foods. But I don't think that the books would have happened if the people hadn't opened up to me. That's how I wrote the books. I go and I talk to people, and the way to talk to people is this is why I like to work with Virginia, Aníbal, and Gabriel. No other, I would not have been able to work with another way of filmmaking. This way of filmmaking respects those people who have invited you. So I ask questions. If you notice in the film, I ask questions in a very open-ended way. Dime más de este espíritu que me dices. And then I stop. I am there to be not the star or the host. I'm there to help the camera, to help the sound evoke what can really come from the persons. And I think all four of us have that philosophy of filmmaking. All four of us come from that way of making films, I think.
Except when they put the camera in your face and you say, déjame comerme mi taco.
That's it. Well, I had to do it. This critic from Denver, from the film festival there, filmmaker, he says, this is a scam. Adán is just, he just gets invited to these places and he gets to eat. It's a scam.
What do you think is the biggest piece of knowledge, and Aníbal and Virginia, you guys can answer this too. What do you think is the biggest piece of knowledge that you learned about either the area or the culture that you didn't previously know before the shoot?
I think it was, and many people agree, that all the history of the chili queens in the film, and then the women and the techniques that they developed, and not just because they were trying to find a new way to cook, but because it was out of a need to survive. And we talk about those foods that we were eating because they were our survival foods. They were the leftovers. And so from that, I think that was really important. And a lot of people really, really had no idea of the history of the chili queens.
And I'll let you guys enter, but one of the things that really related to that for me was that, you know, we have these different cultures, like the African American culture in the U.S. They worship things like, you know, chitlins and these different parts of the pork, but that was because that was the only part of the animal that got left over, the scraps, and they had to basically make, you know, chicken salad out of chicken shit, for lack of a better word, right? And you know, the thing with the cabeza and this and these other ports that really hit me as, and now, you know, what Adán said, now they're trying to turn these things that were comfort food, poor people food, and they're saying, well, it's a delicacy. Right?
Yes.
But yeah, if any of you, but the rest of you guys did, what do you think? What did you guys learn during that journey?
One of the more important things I learned and I understand was the similarities about our culture. We are very far away, but I realized that I remember the moment when we met Larry Salazar and he told about the story about Carancawas and how Carancawas were like pushed out and tried to be um, like a kind of genocide. And when I hear that, it was like hear the history of Charruas and Genoas and indigenous people here in Uruguay. So that was for me was really amazing how connected and how close we are in some kind of terrible things in a way, because well that was for me the most important. And that was an idea I always have, that we are all connected, as Adán said, about we are all habitants of one world. But then when the whole family cooking the cabeza and el pozo, it was like, well, it's my family. We did that kind of asados. So I think that for me that was one of the biggest things I learned in the process. I understand that connection very strong.
Alan, did you want to expand on that? Well, you already wrote the book, so how much more could you learn, right? I'm just kidding.
Yeah, the difficulty with the film was how to layer it in a way that every single idea has a place. It's a very complex film, as you were saying. It's really about the philosophy of living on one planet with feet where you are. And I would go back to when Aníbal and Gabo and I were at the lunch in Montevideo, and we were discussing what would this be, and we thought it was going to be a food travelogue, and it's turned out to be much more than that, because as soon as you talk about food and you go into the book, you see it's more than that. And then when For Virginia came on, I think what I learned is how easy it is for men to forget that we have a blind spot. We always have a blind spot. So anytime you talk about women's issues or women's history, you better be very careful, because anything that you say has a blind spot, whether you like it or not. We are there. And so having a producer like Virginia come on, I think, taught me at different turns she would say this or that, and then we would shift. I think that was very important. And I end up by saying the story of the Chili Queens, our film begins with the story of the first restaurateurs of Texas and San Antonio. Had they been white males, they would not be called chili queens. The white males would not be called chili kings. They would have been called the originators of the modern urban restaurant machine ideal. That's what they would, but because they were women of color, they're just chili queens.
Interesting. I do think that the movie is incredibly well layered. It's almost like a consensus building where you start off and you give us some information about the food and we're like, yes, we're all in on that. The food and the culture. And it's like, all right, let's add this to it. Okay. Then there's the border and it's like, well, actually these people are these people. There's just so much to digest, pun intended, about the project. Specifically, you know, the indigenous people and that they basically they as they were not going to be able to we're not going to be allowed to live on that land. So it was either adapt, lose what makes you indigenous, or become, you know, the Mexicans that might be a little bit more accepted in that area at the time. Do you feel that digging deeper, like into your, like, literally your DNA to see what parts of the world you actually are from is sort of an important aspect of what we're able to do now to connect ourselves more to it? Because certain people live by just saying, like, they don't care, they don't want to know. But how do you feel about that?
Pienso que es un movimiento que se está dando en todo el mundo, o sea, de revisar un poco la historia, conocerla y aceptar que se han cometido crímenes. Y bueno, y a través de eso aceptarlo y desarrollar, creo que la empatía y respetarnos. Y como dice la frase, que una mesa donde todos seamos bienvenidos, la table are welcome. Eso, como creo que puede servir para desarrollar la empatía y acercarnos.
O sea que tú obviamente, viniendo de afuera, tuviste la idea, eres parte del proyecto, pero también en un momento tienes que asegurarte que estás contando la historia de una manera que sirva a esos sentimientos, ¿no? Que no la estás exploitando, estás mirando de afuera, estás viniendo de afuera, sos un invitado, pero estás contando una historia que es similar a la tuya, pero no es tuya en ese aspecto, ¿verdad?
Uh-huh. Sí, en ese sentido, yo digo como que es una construcción colectiva y en este caso como el director es más como se corre un poquito de lo que yo pueda pensar, es más, ya te digo, como los personajes son los que construyen el conocimiento y la
Bueno, en los documentales, documentaries, you know, it's either you write it out and you know exactly what's going to happen on the screen and you know exactly where it's going to go, and it's basically a production, or you shoot 200 hours worth of video and then you find the story. You find the story in the edit, right? But it seems like this, even though you found some things, you had a pretty rock solid idea based on your time frame also of what was going to happen.
Yes, I mean, the story is in the books, as you said before. We chose these people because they are in the book. Maria Sanchez from McAllen is in the book. Celeste is in the book. So we knew what their story was, and that was very strong. But I going back to this, the film is a very beautiful film. I think if you see the cinematography, Gabo did such a fantastic. He brought these lenses, and you know, he likes the glass. I mean, it's just a gorgeous film that he did. And to me, I would not have been confident to do it with another type of camera person. I don't know how. I'm sure Virginia and Aníbal. I think the collective of us, the collective of four people going down the same philosophical, aesthetic way of filmmaking where beauty invites you. Intimacy invites you. These types of things is what we want. How do you capture that which cannot be seen? Type of question. This feeling.
One of the images that caught me the most was when they're walking and they get to the Salt Lake, and I think that you didn't I want to say you didn't like over immerse us in the scenery. You sort of basically, there was a lot of wide shots of the area. Like you didn't bombard us with a bunch of different things like, look at all this important stuff. You sort of let the moment speak for itself. And they're having this conversation about how many people have stood here and they came from this whole area, and if you take this salt out, it's going to replenish it. And that was one of the deepest parts of the film for me, was that instance in that scenery. So I think the documentary does an incredible job of adding the layers to it and giving you time to enjoy and experience that moment, where it's definitely not going to be the same as walking there myself, but seeing them and the caution that they took and the images. Any particular thoughts, Aníbal or Gabo, about that particular scene, about how you guys framed that, or what your thought process was on it?
Well, there's an idea that crosses all over my work. It's let things happen in front of the camera. Put the camera in the place you think it will work, and let things happen. And I think that was one of the clues of all of that we are talking about. I think that this is. Then, of course, you have to collect more material just to have chances to cut and to give, I don't know, resources to build the whole story. But always with that idea of putting the camera in a place and let things happen there, not just all the time trying to find things. Just decide what you want to show, decide the place, and let things happen there. This is more or less something cross over all my work, and of course all we did here in the movie.
Beautiful.
Adán, there's tons of cooking shows on TV. There's tons of people that go around. This Tucci guy has one now, right? Where they go around the world, they eat food, and they get to know a little bit about the culture, but they don't take as deep a dive as you guys did, right? It's sort of it's just a little bit over the surface with a couple of tidbits in there. Do you think there's a place? Or is that something that you would be even interested in taking and taking different locations, different cultures? Obviously, this one's personal to you, but doing similar things and diving into separate areas of Central and South America to have these conversations? Or do you think that the fact that it's on the border, it's between Mexico and the U.S., makes it more of a unique situation for you?
No, thanks for asking that question. That's a very important part of what all four of us have been talking about. We have thought of that. We want to do that. We have an opportunity to do a TV series here in the U.S. with different regions, but that's still very general. This production that has been offered to us, to us. But to answer the question more simply, we did this film in the way, I founded the Chicano Film Festival back in 1976.
Wow.
It's now called the San Antonio Cine Festival. At that point, there were no film festivals.
I got a trailer into that festival. Sorry.
You did? San Antonio. Yeah, I founded that. It's like 47, it's almost 50 years ago that I founded that, because all of the images about Chicanos were, like you say, these cooking shows. You're looking at us. I don't want to look at people and their cooking. I want to, like Virginia and Aníbal and Gabo did so well technically, because I was in it. They filmed it in a way that when you see it, you're not looking at them, you are with them. That's very different. That perspective, what is the closeness, and how do you make that closeness happen technically? This is what I wasn't seeing back in 1976. By the way, I did help found the New York one and the Los Angeles film. So now they're all over the place, but at that time there weren't any. But it's the same principle. I'm tired of having people look at us, and I would like to do more of these. The critic from UCLA, Chon Noriega, who is the founder of the Chicano Study Center, said this film is soulful, and that soul is missing from the other documentaries up there, except for the occasional segment from Anthony Bourdain, when he would do something about Latinos, rest in peace. And I think comparing this to Anthony Bourdain is a good thing. I do like his work, and we would like to do more of it.
When he went to Colombia and Medellin, I thought it was one of the most thoughtful sort of collaborations here. That was one of my favorite when he would go out and do those things. Okay, Adán, if you could take one part of the Uruguayan food experience and import it into Tex-Mex, what would it be? Would it be like chimichurri? Would it be chorizo? What would it be? What would you bring?
Well, first of all, our food is not Tex-Mex.
Oh, I'm sorry. I mean, indigenous food. Sorry. What we horribly call Tex-Mex.
Actually, you're right. Many of our community do use Tex-Mex to talk about our food. So you're right. Sorry, that was a quip. That's an easy answer for me. I want that fish a la plancha. I mean, because the fish that you get from Rio de la Plata is amazing. You can't get it anywhere else because they eat that plankton that's there. That with an Uruguayan white wine. That, I think, if we brought that to San Antonio, brought that to McAllen, they would love it.
Okay.
It would sell.
All right.
It's interesting and a kind of weird because here in Uruguay we do not eat much fish.
Exactly. That's what was interesting to me.
Really interesting. I know it's delicious. I love it, but it's not very common for.
Adán, have you had matambre? Have you had choripan? Come on, man.
Yeah,
Have
you had an alfajor? Come on.
I have. I traveled for 23 years all over Latin America, which is why I met these guys. But no, it's really that fish is so special, and I've fished all over the world. That is really special.
Same question for Aníbal and Cabo. If you could take part of Mexican indigenous cuisine back to Uruguay, what would you take? And why would it be a burrito?
Bueno,
I know what it would be for Gabo. Everywhere we went, he tried the mole.
Oh,
Every place we went to,
love it.
he loves it everywhere.
But there's something I already take with me, and that was the tortillas. I at least once a week I eat tortillas with something. I love it.
well, the reason I asked the burritos, my company is called my production company is called 2 a.m. Burrito, because I believe it's not about it's a time and a place. I live in San Diego in Southern California. When you're out playing, partying, having friends, or you come from a movie, you come home and you get a burrito at 2 a.m, and it's a very Southern California thing. So that's kind of why it's a silly name for my company. But so this is I am uniquely qualified to host this Q&A. Is basically what I'm saying. But I do miss food from Uruguay, and I'm surrounded by Mexican food. There's at least some Colombian restaurants now in San Diego, so that's a good thing. I wanted to just ask you guys another silly question about food fusion, because I remember when I lived in New York, the Chino Latino restaurants were some of the best food, because you would have like rotisserie chicken. I've eaten like Peruvian Chinese restaurants where they have like rotisserie chicken, but then with fried rice and yeah. What are some of your favorite like food fusions of different cultures that you guys have seen, or that you've written about, or that you're aware of, Adán and the rest of you guys?
Okay, I'll start. I'll be quick. In my second book, which is about the art, I basically say that all cooking is fusion. The sandia that we love in Mexico is African. If you look at, so all is fusion, and I hope that we begin to see that food doesn't have nationality. Food has roots. It travels everywhere and it is rooted. And my favorite fusion would be corn tortillas, a corn tortilla fish taco with Uruguayan fish.
Oh, okay. All right, Virginia, what about you?
Since I live in Houston, we do a lot of Cajun food. So my favorite is Cajun seasoning on anything Mexican kind of food, and marry the two together.
Okay. Aníbal, Gabo, what about you guys?
Bueno, hay un tema que a mí me apasiona, que es cómo a veces la migración y lleva su cultura y la protege, y creo que la comida siempre es algo que se cuidan con las recetas de la familia, y bueno, y celebro esa memoria cultural, lo celebro con un cóctel con tequila y con pomelo, hacer como un cóctel paloma, pero con tequila y pomelo aquí de Uruguay.
Está bien. ¿Qué, tequila blanco, añejo o mezcal o no importa?
Mezcal, si puedo elegir, mezcal.
Mezcal, ok, está bien, okay. ¿Qué tomas? All right, and Gabo?
I think I will choose a tortilla also with pork and cilantro and lime. That combination kills me. I could eat that anytime.
Un chivito, pero con tortilla en vez de.
Yeah. I love cilantro. Cilantro and lime, it's incredible. It's an amazing taste. We didn't eat so much here. We haven't got many cilantro here in Uruguay. We have, but in a few places. It's amazing. I love it.
And I'll send you some cilantro. You send me a box of alfajores. We'll call it even, okay? All right, guys. Well, thank you very much for number one being a part of the festival as a fellow attendee. I am part of the reason I love doing these Q&As is because I get to see the amount of talent that's out there in South America, Central America, and it humbles me to be side by side with you guys as part of the festival. I truly enjoyed your film. I hope people watch it. You can watch Truly Texas Mexican again Thursday, March 18th. If you missed it today, you can even watch it today until I think midnight. So don't hesitate to watch it, and then you can come back, watch the Q&A afterwards, and know what's going on. But if you do not, you can watch it next Thursday, March 18th, 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, again, virtually. So thank you to all of you guys, and I hope you guys are having fun. Hope you guys watch a lot of movie. Don't forget to watch my movie.
Thank you so much, Luis, Latino Film, and of course, Adán, Aníbal, Virginia. Thank you all.
Excellent.
Bueno.
Excellent.
Right.
Thank you. Thank you, Luis.
Thank you, guys. All right, guys, this has been the Q&A. Everybody have a good night. We'll see you on the next one.
Good night. Bye.
Chao. Gracias, Luis. Chao.
Later.